The soft clatter of horses' hooves faded into the distance as Olivia Kendrick stood frozen on the porch of the Crossroads Inn, her hand pressed against her swollen belly, watching the dust cloud that marked her husband's departure and the shattering of her world. It was April 1875, and the bustling little way station at the edge of Riverside, California, had just become Olivia's reluctant home. The setting sun cast long shadows across the dirt road that stretched endlessly toward San Bernardino to the east and Los Angeles to the west. A road her husband of 2 years, Thomas, had just traveled with their wagon, their belongings, and her dreams of building a life together in the promising orchards of Southern California. "He ain't coming back, miss," said Mrs. Dorothy Hale, the innkeeper's wife, a stout woman with weathered hands and eyes that had witnessed too many broken promises. "Men like that never do." Olivia couldn't speak. At 23, 7 months pregnant, and abandoned at her roadside inn with nothing but the clothes she wore and $3 to her name, words seemed inadequate to describe the hollow feeling expanding inside her chest. "You can stay the night," Mrs. Hale continued, her voice softening. "We'll figure something out come morning." Olivia nodded numbly, still staring at the horizon where Thomas had disappeared. She had suspected his growing unease as her pregnancy progressed, had noticed his wandering eyes when they'd stopped in towns along their journey west from Missouri. But she'd convinced herself it was just nerves about becoming a father. How wrong she had been. "Why don't you come in for supper? Standing here won't bring him back." Mrs. Hale's practical tone finally broke through Olivia's shock. She turned, one hand still protectively cradling her belly, and followed the older woman into the inn. The main room served as both dining hall and gathering place, with a long bar along one wall and several wooden tables scattered throughout. The scent of beef stew and fresh bread filled the air, but Olivia's appetite had vanished along with her husband. "Sit," Mrs. Hale commanded, pulling out a chair at a corner table. "I'll bring you something to eat. Can't have you starving that baby." As Mrs. Hale bustled away, Olivia sank into the chair. Her golden brown hair had come loose from its pins during the day's ordeal, and she tucked a strand behind her ear, conscious of the stares from the few patrons scattered around the room. News traveled fast in establishments like this. The pregnant woman abandoned by her husband would be the talk of every table tonight. The creaking of the front door drew her attention, and Olivia watched as a tall man ducked to enter the inn. He removed his hat, revealing thick dark hair that curled slightly at the ends. Dust covered his clothes, a worn leather vest over a faded blue shirt, denims tucked into scuffed boots. A cowboy, by the look of him, with a gun belt slung low on his hips. He scanned the room, his gaze finally landing on Olivia. For a moment, their eyes met hers, red-rimmed from crying, his a startling shade of blue against his sun-darkened skin. Then he nodded slightly and moved toward the bar, where Mr. Hale, a balding man with impressive whiskers, was polishing glasses. Mrs. Hale returned with a bowl of stew and a chunk of bread. "Eat," she instructed, setting it before Olivia. "That's Noah Calloway," she said, following Olivia's gaze to the cowboy at the bar. "Passes through every few months. Drives cattle between the ranches down south and the railhead up north. Keeps to himself mostly, but he's decent enough. Not like some who come through." Olivia forced herself to eat a spoonful of stew, realizing suddenly how hungry she was. As she ate, she tried to avoid looking at the cowboy again, but she felt his occasional glance in her direction. Was it pity she saw there, or just curiosity about the pregnant woman dining alone? By the time she finished her meal, the dining room had filled with travelers' teamsters, a few miners headed for the mountains, and 2 well-dressed businessmen discussing railroad investments. The noise level had risen with the crowd, but Olivia felt strangely isolated in her corner, as if she existed in a bubble of silence. Mr. Hale appeared at her table, his expression kind but businesslike. "Mrs. Kendrick, my wife tells me you're in a difficult situation. We can offer you the room for tonight, but I understand," Olivia interrupted, determined not to show how terrified she felt. "I'll find work tomorrow. I can clean or cook. I just need a place until the baby comes," Mrs. Hale finished, appearing behind her husband. "That's nearly 2 months away, Dorothy," Mr. Hale said gently. "We can't. She'll work for her keep," Mrs. Hale insisted. "We've been needing help around here anyway, with my joints acting up." Mr. Hale sighed, clearly recognizing defeat. "Very well. But when the baby comes, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it," his wife said firmly. From his position at the bar, Noah Calloway observed the exchange. He'd heard whispers about the woman's situation, abandoned by her husband, left with nothing. It wasn't an uncommon tale in these parts. Men came west with grand dreams, only to find the reality harsher than imagined. Some weren't cut out for the work or the isolation, and some simply weren't cut out to be husbands or fathers. He finished his whiskey and considered his options. He'd planned to stay the night and continue north in the morning with the first light. His business in Riverside was concluded. He delivered 30 head of cattle to the Henderson Ranch and had the payment safely tucked in his inside pocket. There was no reason to linger. Yet something about the woman's quiet dignity as she negotiated for her immediate future stirred something in him. He'd seen desperation aplenty in his travels, but rarely such composure in the face of betrayal. "Mr. Calloway, your usual room is ready," Mr. Hale called to him. Noah nodded his thanks and headed for the stairs, deliberately looking away from the pregnant woman. Her troubles weren't his concern. He had his own life, his own plans that certainly didn't include complications like a woman about to give birth. Upstairs in his small but clean room, Noah removed his boots and stretched out on the bed, hands behind his head. Through the thin walls, he could hear movement in the adjacent room's soft footsteps, a sigh, the creak of bed springs. The abandoned wife must have been given the room next to his. Sleep eluded him as he stared at the ceiling. He'd been on the move for almost 8 years, since the age of 20, driving cattle, working ranches, occasionally serving as security for stagecoaches. It was a solitary life, but one that suited him. No attachments, no responsibilities beyond the immediate job, no one depending on him. Yet here he was, lying awake thinking about a stranger's predicament. Perhaps it was because he'd seen his own sister abandoned by a worthless husband years ago, left to raise 2 young children alone until consumption took her. His niece and nephew were with his parents in Oregon now, and he sent money when he could, but he rarely saw them. A muffled sob from the next room made him sit up. The walls of the Crossroads Inn were thin as paper, and he could clearly hear the woman crying, trying to muffle the sound in what he imagined was a pillow. "Not your problem, Calloway," he muttered to himself, lying back down and throwing an arm over his eyes. But her soft weeping continued, punctuated by occasional whispers he couldn't quite make out. Was she talking to her unborn child? The thought twisted something in his chest. After 15 more minutes of restless turning, Noah gave up on sleep and pulled his boots back on. He'd go sit on the porch for a while, have a smoke, and clear his head. The night air might help him forget the sound of a woman's heartbreak through a thin wooden wall. Downstairs, the common room was quieter now, with only a few patrons still nursing drinks. The Hales were nowhere in sight, likely retired to their quarters behind the kitchen. Noah slipped out the front door onto the porch, where a half-moon illuminated the dusty yard. He lit a cigarette and leaned against the porch railing, exhaling smoke into the cool night air. Spring nights in Riverside could still carry a chill, especially with the breeze coming down from the nearby mountains. Couldn't sleep either. Noah turned to find Olivia standing in the doorway, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes were red and puffy, but her voice was steady. "Madam," he acknowledged with a nod, immediately straightening. "Just getting some air." "I'm sorry if I disturbed you," she said quietly. "These walls aren't very substantial." Noah felt heat rise to his face, embarrassed that she knew he'd heard her crying. No apology needed. Olivia stepped onto the porch, moving to the railing a few feet away from him. "It's beautiful here at night," she observed, looking up at the star-filled sky. "So many stars. We couldn't see them like this back in St. Louis." "The air's clearer out west," Noah replied, unsure why he was engaging in conversation when he'd come out here specifically to avoid thinking about her situation. "I suppose I should be thankful Thomas left me in a place like this, and not in the middle of the desert." She gave a hollow laugh that contained no humor. Noah crushed out his cigarette against the railing. "Your husband's a fool," he said before he could stop himself. Olivia looked at him in surprise, and for a moment Noah thought he'd offended her. But then her expression softened. "Yes, he is," she agreed, "though I'm the bigger fool for not seeing it sooner. You couldn't have known he'd do this." "Couldn't I?" she sighed, rubbing her belly absently. "There were signs. He started changing when I told him about the baby, became distant. Argued about coming west in the first place. I thought once we arrived, once we had our own place." She trailed off, shaking her head. "I was naive." "You were hopeful," Noah corrected. "There's a difference." A small smile touched her lips. "You're kind to say so, Mr. Calloway." "Noah," he said. "Just Noah is fine." "Noah," she repeated. "I'm Olivia." An awkward silence fell between them. Noah knew he should excuse himself, go back to his room, and continue with his plans to leave at first light. Instead, he found himself asking, "What will you do now?" Olivia's hand moved protectively over her rounded belly. "Mrs. Hale says I can work here until the baby comes. After that." She shrugged. "I'll find something. I'm good with numbers. I kept books for my father's store before I married. Or I can sew, clean, cook. I'll manage." Noah nodded, admiring her determination despite everything. Riverside's growing fast. Might be opportunities here for someone with skills. "That's what I'm hoping." She stifled a yawn. "I should try to rest. Tomorrow will be my first day earning my keep." "Of course," Noah said, stepping aside to let her pass. "Good night, Olivia." "Good night, Noah." She paused at the door, looking back at him. "Thank you for listening. It's been a difficult day." After she disappeared inside, Noah remained on the porch, staring at the empty doorway. Something about Olivia Kendrick stirred protective instincts he'd thought long buried. Perhaps it was her vulnerability combined with her obvious strength. Or perhaps it was simply that she reminded him of his sister in those last desperate months. Whatever the reason, Noah found himself reconsidering his plans to leave in the morning. The cattle drive to the northern railhead didn't have a firm deadline. Another day or two in Riverside wouldn't hurt. He could check on some contacts, maybe look for additional work. And if he happened to be around to help a certain abandoned wife in the process, well, that would just be neighborly. With that decision made, Noah finally felt tired enough to sleep. He returned to his room, careful to move quietly past Olivia's door. Tomorrow would bring what it would bring. For tonight, he'd simply done what any decent man would do, offered a kind word to someone in need. The next morning dawned clear and bright, with the scent of orange blossoms drifting on the breeze from the groves that were beginning to define Riverside's landscape. Noah rose early, as was his habit, and went downstairs to find Mr. Hale already behind the bar, preparing for the day. "Thought you'd be on your way north by now," the innkeeper remarked as he served Noah coffee. "Decided to stay another day or two," Noah replied casually. "Got some business to attend to in town." Mr. Hale raised an eyebrow but didn't comment further. Both men turned as Olivia emerged from the kitchen, carrying a tray of freshly baked biscuits. She'd pulled her hair back neatly and wore a simple dress with an apron that had been let out to accommodate her condition. "Good morning, Mr. Calloway," she said, her voice professional but with a warmth that hadn't been there the night before. "Madam," he replied with a nod, noting the shadows under her eyes that suggested she hadn't slept much. Mrs. Hale bustled in behind Olivia. "She's a godsend already," the older woman declared. "Makes biscuits light as clouds. We'll be keeping her busy, that's for certain." Throughout the morning, Noah observed Olivia as she worked serving breakfast to the guests, clearing tables, helping Mrs. Hale with various chores. Despite her advanced pregnancy, she moved efficiently, pausing only occasionally to press a hand against her lower back when she thought no one was looking. By midday, Noah had made up his mind. He approached Mr. Hale, speaking in a low voice. "I'd like to pay for Mrs. Kendrick's room for the next 2 weeks." The innkeeper looked surprised. "That's generous of you, Calloway." "It's not charity," Noah clarified quickly. "She's earning her keep with work. This just ensures she has a place regardless of how busy you are." "And why would you do that for a woman you met yesterday?" Mr. Hale asked shrewdly. Noah hesitated, unwilling to delve into his personal reasons. "Let's just say I've seen what happens to women left in her situation, and I'd like to help if I can." Mr. Hale studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. 2 weeks it is." With that arrangement made, Noah headed into town. Riverside was expanding rapidly, with new buildings going up along the main street and side streets being laid out in anticipation of more growth. The coming of the railroads and the success of the citrus industry had transformed what had been a small settlement into a burgeoning town. Noah visited the general store, the blacksmith, and finally the bank, where he deposited most of his cattle drive earnings, keeping only what he needed for immediate expenses. As he was leaving the bank, he nearly collided with a well-dressed man entering. "Pardon me," Noah said, stepping aside. "No harm done," the man replied, then looked at Noah more carefully. "Say, you look like a man who knows horses, am I right?" "I've worked with them most of my life," Noah admitted. The man extended his hand. "James Wilson. I own the livery at the edge of town. Lost my best horse trainer last week, headed for the silver mines in Nevada. I'm looking for someone who can work with some of the more difficult animals I've taken in." Noah considered the offer. He did have a way with horses, especially the ones others gave up on. And a job in town would give him a reason to stay around longer, to make sure Olivia was settled before he moved on. "I might be interested," he said cautiously. "For a few weeks at least." "That's all I ask," Wilson said eagerly. "Come by tomorrow morning if you're serious. Pays fair, and there's a room above the stable you can use if you want it." They shook hands, and Noah continued his walk through town, his mind turning over this unexpected opportunity. By the time he returned to the inn for the evening meal, he'd decided to accept Wilson's offer. It wouldn't hurt to build up his funds a bit more before the next cattle drive, and breaking horses was work he enjoyed. The dining room was busy when he arrived, with Olivia moving between tables, serving plates of roast chicken and potatoes. She looked tired but managed a smile when she saw him. "Your usual table is open," she said, gesturing to the corner where he typically sat. "Thank you," Noah replied, noting the hint of color in her cheeks that hadn't been there that morning. Working seemed to agree with her, despite her condition. When she brought his meal, she lingered a moment. Mrs. Hale mentioned what you did, she said quietly. Paying for my room. Noah felt uncomfortable with her gratitude. It's nothing. It's not nothing to me, Olivia insisted. But I want you to know I intend to repay you. Every cent. There's no need, there is, she interrupted firmly. I won't be beholden to another man, no matter how kind the gesture. Noah saw the determination in her eyes and understood. After being abandoned, she needed to stand on her own, to prove to herself that she could manage without depending on anyone. All right, he conceded. When you're able. She seemed satisfied with that, and moved on to serve other customers. Noah ate his meal thoughtfully, watching her navigate the room with practiced ease. For someone who had just had her life upended, Olivia Kendrick was showing remarkable resilience. Later that evening, Noah again found himself on the porch, this time sharing the space with two drummers who were discussing their sales routes. He was contemplating heading back inside when Olivia appeared, carrying a cup of tea. Mind some company? She asked, keeping her voice low to avoid drawing the attention of the other men. Not at all, Noah replied, moving to the far end of the porch where they could speak more privately. Olivia sipped her tea, looking out at the darkened road. Mrs. Hale says you're a cattle driver. Among other things, Noah confirmed. I've been on the move since I was 20. No place to call home, he thought about it. Not really. My parents have a small place in Oregon, but I haven't been back in nearly 3 years. That sounds lonely, Olivia observed. Noah shrugged. I'm used to it. What about you? Besides St. Louis, I mean. We lived in my father's house after we married, she said. Thomas worked as a clerk in a dry goods store. He hated it, said he was meant for greater things. When news of the opportunities in California reached us, he couldn't talk of anything else. She shook her head ruefully. I thought he wanted to build something for our future, for our family. What did he say when he left? Noah asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. I'm sorry, that's none of my business. It's all right, Olivia said. He didn't say much, just that he couldn't be tied down with a wife and child when there was so much opportunity out west, that I'd be better off finding someone who wanted that life. Her voice caught slightly. As if I were a horse he'd decided not to buy. Noah felt a surge of anger toward the absent Thomas. Some men don't deserve the women who love them. I'm beginning to see that, Olivia agreed. She finished her tea and set the cup aside. I should let you enjoy the evening in peace. I just wanted to thank you again properly, away from curious ears. You're welcome, Noah said simply, and I'll be around for a while longer. Mr. Wilson at the livery offered me work breaking horses. Something like relief flickered across Olivia's face. That's good news. For Mr. Wilson, I mean. Mrs. Hale says he's been complaining about losing his trainer for weeks. Well, it's temporary, Noah clarified, not wanting to give her the wrong impression. Just until I head north for the next cattle drive. Of course, Olivia said, her expression carefully neutral. Still, it's nice to have a friend in town. Good night, Noah. Good night, Olivia. As she walked away, Noah realized with a start that he was indeed becoming her friend, and that the prospect of staying in Riverside for a few weeks no longer felt like an imposition on his freedom, but rather like an unexpected gift. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Noah would breakfast at the inn before heading to the livery, where he spent his days working with horses that had been deemed too difficult by their owners. Some were simply spirited, needing a firm but gentle hand to guide them. Others had been mistreated and required patience to rebuild their trust in humans. In the evenings, he would return to the inn for supper, often finding Olivia still at work, despite Mrs. Hale's insistence that she rest. After the dining room cleared, they would sometimes sit together on the porch, talking about their days or sharing stories from their pasts. Noah learned that Olivia had grown up as the only daughter of a widowed shopkeeper, that she had a head for figures and a love of reading, and that she had married Thomas after a whirlwind courtship of just 3 months. In turn, he told her about his childhood on a small farm in Oregon, his decision to leave home after his sister's death, and his years of wandering from job to job across the Western Territories. "Have you ever thought about settling down?" Olivia asked one evening about a week after their first conversation. Noah considered the question. "Sometimes," he admitted, "when I see a particularly nice piece of land, or when I'm tired of sleeping under the stars during a cattle drive. But then I remember how suffocating it felt after Sarah, my sister, died, how the walls of our family home seemed to close in with all those memories." "So you keep moving to outrun the grief," Olivia suggested gently. Her insight startled him. "I suppose that's part of it," he acknowledged. "Though it's been 8 years now, the grief isn't as sharp as it was. Some wounds take longer to heal," Olivia said, "and some never do completely." They fell silent, each lost in thought. The evening air was perfumed with orange blossoms, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called, its lonely cry echoing across the valley. "What about you?" Noah asked eventually. "What will you do after the baby comes?" Olivia's hand moved to her belly, a gesture Noah had noticed she made often, as if reassuring herself or the child. "I'm not sure yet. Mrs. Hale says I can stay on, but with an infant." She sighed. "It would be difficult to work the hours needed to pay my way." "There might be other opportunities in town," Noah suggested. "The bank might need someone with your skills with figures." "Perhaps," Olivia agreed, though she didn't sound convinced. "I've been putting aside some of my wages. It's not much, but it's a start." Noah wanted to tell her not to worry, that he would help her find a solution, but he held his tongue. Her independence was important to her, and he respected that too much to offer assistance she hadn't asked for. As the days passed, Noah found himself increasingly drawn to Olivia. It wasn't just her beauty, though he certainly noticed the way her golden brown hair caught the sunlight, or how her eyes, a warm hazel, lit up when she smiled. It was her strength, her determination to forge ahead despite the cruel hand she'd been dealt. At the livery, Noah earned Mr. Wilson's respect with his ability to calm even the most difficult horses. Word spread, and soon ranchers from the surrounding area were bringing their problem animals for him to train. "You've got a gift, Calloway," Wilson said one afternoon, watching as Noah worked with a spirited black stallion that had thrown 3 different hands at the Henderson Ranch. "I hate to think of you leaving when the cattle drive starts up." Noah ran a hand along the stallion's neck, feeling the powerful muscles beneath the sleek coat. "I haven't decided when I'm leaving yet," he admitted. Wilson raised an eyebrow but didn't press the issue. "Well, there's plenty of work here if you decide to stay on. And the pay could be better if this keeps up." That evening, as Noah walked back to the inn, he found himself seriously considering the possibility of remaining in Riverside longer than planned. The work was steady. The town was growing, and there was something appealing about waking up in the same bed each morning instead of wherever the trail had led him. And then there was Olivia. He knew he was developing feelings for her, feelings that went beyond friendship or the desire to help someone in need. But she was still married, technically, despite her husband's desertion, and she was about to become a mother. The last thing she needed was another complication in her life. When he arrived at the inn, he was surprised to find the main room in a state of commotion. Mrs. Hale was directing 2 men to carry a trunk upstairs, while Mr. Hale argued with a well-dressed woman near the door. "What's happening?" Noah asked one of the regular patrons. "New guests," the man replied. "Fancy lady from back east and her brother by the looks of it, demanding the best room in the house, but Hale's telling them it's already occupied." Noah scanned the room for Olivia but didn't see her. Concerned, he made his way to the kitchen, where he found her sitting at the preparation table, her face pale. "Are you all right?" he asked, immediately alarmed by her appearance. Olivia looked up, relief flooding her features when she saw him. "Noah." "I thought," she broke off, pressing a hand to her belly. "It's nothing, just some discomfort. Mrs. Hale says it's normal at this stage." Noah wasn't convinced. "You look like you've seen a ghost." She hesitated, then said in a low voice, "The woman who just arrived, I know her. She's Thomas's sister, Elena." "Your sister-in-law?" Noah asked, surprised. "Does she know you're here?" "I don't think so," Olivia said. "We never met in person. She lived in Boston and couldn't attend our wedding. But I've seen her photograph, and Thomas described her often enough." "What would she be doing in Riverside?" "I don't know. Thomas mentioned once that she had investments in California, but—" Olivia trailed off as the kitchen door swung open and Mrs. Hale entered. "There you are, girl," the older woman said briskly. "We've got new guests who will be staying at least a week. Room 3 needs to be prepared right away." "I'll do it," Olivia said, starting to rise. "No, you rest," Mrs. Hale insisted. "I'll send Jenny." She turned to Noah. "Supper will be delayed a bit with all this commotion." "Take your time," Noah assured her. When she left, he turned back to Olivia. "Do you want to avoid her? I could help you back upstairs using the service stairs." Olivia considered this, then shook her head. "No, if she's staying a week, we're bound to cross paths eventually. Better to face it now." She stood, wincing slightly. Would you stay close by?" "Of course," Noah promised, touched by her trust. They returned to the main room together, where the new arrivals were now seated at the best table near the fireplace. The woman Elena was perhaps 30, elegantly dressed in a traveling suit of deep blue, her dark hair arranged fashionably beneath a small hat. The man with her appeared younger, with the same dark features but a more relaxed demeanor. Olivia took a deep breath and moved toward their table. "Good evening," she said politely. "Welcome to the Crossroads Inn." Elena looked up, her expression one of mild disinterest until her gaze traveled to Olivia's pregnant form, then her eyes widened in shock. "Good heavens," she exclaimed. "You're Thomas's wife." The man with her looked equally surprised. "This is unexpected," he murmured. "Yes, I'm Olivia Kendrick," Olivia confirmed, her voice steady despite the slight tremor Noah could detect in her hands. "And you must be Elena and—" "I'm sorry, I don't believe Thomas mentioned your name," she said to the man. "Robert Pearson," he supplied. "Elena's husband. Thomas and I have corresponded, but we've never met in person." He rose and pulled out a chair. "Please join us. This is quite a coincidence." Olivia hesitated, then sat, looking grateful to be off her feet. Noah remained standing nearby, close enough to intervene if needed but giving them space to talk. "Thomas said you were settling in Los Angeles," Elena said, her sharp eyes taking in Olivia's work dress and apron. "Yet here you are, working in a roadside inn, and in your condition." Her tone carried a note of disapproval. "Plans changed," Olivia said simply. "Thomas decided California wasn't to his liking after all." "He left you here?" Robert asked, sounding genuinely dismayed. "When is he coming back?" Olivia met his gaze directly. "He's not. He abandoned me here 9 days ago and continued west. Said he wasn't ready for the responsibilities of family life." Elena's expression hardened. "That sounds like my brother, always running from commitment." She studied Olivia more carefully. "How far along are you?" "Nearly 8 months." "And you're working as a serving girl?" Elena's voice rose slightly. "Does Thomas know of your situation?" "He's the one who put me in this situation," Olivia replied, a hint of steel entering her tone. "And I'm grateful to the Hales for giving me employment and a roof over my head." Elena exchanged a glance with her husband, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then she turned back to Olivia. "Well, this won't do at all. Your family, regardless of my brother's reprehensible behavior, will make arrangements for more suitable accommodations." "I appreciate your concern," Olivia said carefully, "but I'm managing. I don't need charity." "It's not charity," Elena insisted. "It's family obligation. Robert and I are here to oversee our investments in the citrus groves. We've taken a house in town for the duration of our stay. There's more than enough room for you." Noah watched Olivia's face as she considered this unexpected offer. He could see her weighing her pride against practical considerations for her unborn child. "I've made commitments here," she said finally. "I can't simply leave the Hales without help." "Surely they can find someone else," Elena said dismissively. "A pregnant woman shouldn't be carrying trays and cleaning rooms." "Mrs. Hale has been very kind to me," Olivia said firmly. "I won't leave her in the lurch, but perhaps we could discuss this further tomorrow. I'm rather tired now." Elena looked like she wanted to argue but nodded reluctantly. "Very well, tomorrow then, but I insist you at least join us for dinner this evening, as family." "Thank you," Olivia said, rising somewhat unsteadily. Noah immediately stepped forward, offering his arm for support, which she gratefully accepted. "And who might you be?" Elena asked, eyeing Noah with evident disapproval. "Noah Calloway," he replied evenly. "A friend of Mrs. Kendrick." "I see," Elena said in a tone that suggested she saw entirely too much. "Well, Mr. Calloway, I appreciate your concern for my sister-in-law, but we'll take care of her from now on." "That will be for Olivia to decide," Noah said, meeting the woman's gaze without flinching. A tense silence fell, broken only when Olivia swayed slightly against Noah's arm. "I really should rest before dinner," she said, her voice strained. Noah helped her toward the stairs, acutely aware of Elena's critical gaze following them. Once they were out of earshot, Olivia let out a shaky breath. "Well, that was unexpected," she murmured. "Are you considering their offer?" Noah asked, trying to keep his tone neutral. "I don't know," Olivia admitted as they reached her door. "It would be more comfortable than the inn, certainly, but Elena is formidable, and I've only just begun to stand on my own feet again." "You don't have to decide right away," Noah pointed out. "Take the night to think about it." Olivia nodded, then winced, pressing a hand to her side. "This little one is active today," she explained, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Noah wasn't convinced. "Should I fetch the doctor?" "No, truly, it's just normal movements." She patted his arm reassuringly. "Thank you for standing by me down there. It helped to have a friend present." The word friend both warmed and disappointed Noah, but he pushed aside his complicated feelings. "I'll be at dinner if you need me," he promised. Alone in his room, Noah paced restlessly. Elena's arrival complicated matters. On one hand, it seemed providential Olivia would have family support, better accommodations, perhaps even financial assistance. All things Noah couldn't provide in the same measure. On the other hand, the thought of Olivia leaving the inn, of not seeing her each day, of not having their evening conversations on the porch, it left an unexpected hollow feeling in his chest. "You're being selfish," he muttered to himself. "She needs to do what's best for her and her baby." When dinner time arrived, Noah went downstairs to find Elena and Robert already seated, with Olivia joining them rather than serving tables as usual. Mrs. Hale, seeing Noah's uncertainty, directed him to his usual corner table. "She seems better for the rest," the innkeeper's wife observed, following Noah's gaze to Olivia. "Though I'm not sure about those fancy relatives. That woman has a look about her like she smelled something unpleasant. Noah couldn't help but smile at the accurate assessment. "Will you be sorry to lose Olivia's help?" he asked. Mrs. Hale snorted. "She hasn't decided to go yet, but if she does, who could blame her? A proper house would be better for her and the baby than this noisy inn." She gave Noah a shrewd look, though I suspect she might have other reasons to stay. Before Noah could respond to that loaded comment, a commotion at the Pearsons' table drew their attention. Olivia had stood suddenly, one hand gripping the table edge, her face contorted in pain. "Olivia," Eleanor's voice carried across the room. Noah was on his feet instantly, crossing to their table as Robert half rose in concern. "Something's wrong," Olivia gasped, her free hand pressed against her belly. "The baby, it's too early," Mrs. Hale rushed over. "How long have you been having pains?" she demanded. Since this morning," Olivia admitted, "but they weren't bad until now." Her eyes sought Noah's, fear evident in them. "It's too soon." "Get her upstairs," Mrs. Hale ordered. "Robert, fetch Dr. Miller. His office is 2 doors down from the general store." Noah didn't hesitate. He scooped Olivia into his arms, ignoring Eleanor's protest that Robert should be the one to help. Olivia felt small and fragile against his chest, her body tense with pain. "Hold on," he murmured as he carried her carefully up the stairs. "The doctor's coming." In her room, he gently laid her on the bed, unsure what to do next. Mrs. Hale bustled in behind them, immediately taking charge. "Out with you now," she told Noah firmly. "This is women's business." "No," Olivia gasped, clutching Noah's hand. "Please stay, at least until the doctor comes." Noah looked to Mrs. Hale, who sighed in resignation. "Very well. Make yourself useful and bring up hot water from the kitchen." For the next hour, Noah found himself moving between Olivia's room and the kitchen, bringing water, clean linens, and whatever else Mrs. Hale demanded. Dr. Miller arrived, a gruff older man with capable hands and a reassuring manner. After examining Olivia, he stepped into the hallway where Noah waited anxiously. "It's not labor," the doctor informed him. "False pains brought on by stress and overexertion. But she needs complete bed rest for at least a week. No work, no excitement, no strain of any kind. Otherwise, that baby might decide to come early after all." Relief washed over Noah. "I'll make sure she rests," he promised. The doctor raised an eyebrow. "Are you the husband?" "No, just a friend." "Well, just a friend. See that she follows my orders. I'll check on her again tomorrow." With that, he returned to give Olivia his instructions directly when Eleanor and Robert arrived upstairs, having finally returned with additional supplies Mrs. Hale had requested. Noah met them in the hallway to explain the doctor's diagnosis. "This settles it," Eleanor declared. "She's coming to our house where she can rest properly." "I'm not sure that's what Olivia wants," Noah said carefully. Eleanor drew herself up. "Mr. Calloway, while I appreciate your concern, this is a family matter. Olivia needs proper care in a proper home, not a busy inn where she's been working herself to exhaustion." Before Noah could argue further, the door to Olivia's room opened and Mrs. Hale emerged. "She's asking for you," the innkeeper's wife said, looking directly at Noah. "Both of you," she added to Eleanor and Robert. Inside, Olivia was propped against her pillows, looking pale but composed. "I've been thinking," she said without preamble. "Eleanor, your offer is generous and I think I should accept it." She held up a hand as Noah started to speak. "But only temporarily, just until after the baby comes. Then I'll decide what to do next." Eleanor smiled triumphantly. "Of course, dear. We'll move you tomorrow once the doctor gives his approval. And I'll still help here at the inn when I can," Olivia added, glancing at Mrs. Hale. "I won't abandon my commitments." "You'll do no such thing," Eleanor protested. "The doctor said rest. For a week," Olivia corrected. After that, light duties should be fine, and I still owe the Hales for their kindness. Her gaze shifted to Noah, a question in her eyes that he couldn't quite interpret. Whatever you think best, he said quietly. Alina looked between them, her expression calculating. Well, it's settled then. Robert, go downstairs and arrange for our trunks to be sent to the house. We'll stay here tonight to be close to Olivia, then move her tomorrow. After the Pearsons left to make arrangements, Mrs. Hale followed, giving Noah a meaningful look that suggested he shouldn't stay too long. Alone with Olivia, Noah moved to the bedside chair. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. Olivia reached for his hand. "I think it's for the best. The doctor made it clear I need more rest than I've been getting, and Alina may be intimidating, but she seems genuinely concerned." "I just don't want you to feel pressured," Noah said. "I don't," Olivia assured him. "But Noah, will you still be around? I mean, will you visit? I've come to value your friendship these past days." The word friendship again, though this time Noah thought he detected something more in her tone. "Of course I will," he promised. "I'm still working for Wilson and the cattle drive won't start for weeks yet." Relief crossed her features. "Good. I don't think I could bear it if she stopped." Blushing slightly, Noah squeezed her hand gently. "If what?" "If you disappeared too," she admitted softly. "I've had enough of that to last a lifetime." "I'm not going anywhere," Noah said firmly, though even as he spoke the words, he recognized the implication behind them. He was making a commitment, something he'd avoided for years. Strange how it didn't feel confining at all. The next day, Olivia moved to the Pearsons' rented house on one of Riverside's newly established residential streets. It was a handsome two-story building with a wide porch and spacious rooms, far more comfortable than her quarters at the inn. Alina had hired a housekeeper and a cook, so Olivia found herself with little to do but rest and prepare for the baby's arrival. True to his word, Noah visited regularly. At first, Alina watched these visits with obvious disapproval, making pointed remarks about fortune hunters and taking advantage. But as days turned into weeks, even she had to acknowledge that Noah's intentions seemed honorable. He never stayed too long, always brought small, thoughtful gifts, fresh fruit from the market, a book he thought Olivia might enjoy, flowers from the fields outside town, and treated Olivia with a respect that was impossible to fault. By the end of May, Olivia had regained her strength and color. The doctor had pronounced her healthy and the baby developing normally, though he still cautioned against any strenuous activity. One warm afternoon, Noah arrived to find Olivia sitting on the porch swing, working on a small piece of embroidery, a baby blanket. He realized as he approached. "You're getting good at that," he observed, taking the seat beside her. Olivia smiled ruefully. "Alina's been teaching me. She says every proper mother should know needlework. I think she's trying to transform me into a lady before the baby arrives." "And how's that going?" "About as well as you'd expect," Olivia laughed. "I'm afraid I'm a hopeless case. Yesterday I used the wrong fork at dinner and Alina nearly fainted." Noah chuckled, enjoying the sound of her laughter. These past weeks had changed her, or perhaps revealed more of who she truly was beneath the shock and grief of abandonment. She was quick-witted, intelligent, and possessed a dry sense of humor that often caught him by surprise. "I have news," he said after a comfortable silence had fallen between them. "Wilson has offered me a partnership in the livery." Olivia's eyes widened. "Noah, that's wonderful. Are you going to accept?" "I'm considering it," he said. "It would mean staying in Riverside permanently. Setting down roots. And the cattle drives. Would you miss them?" Noah thought about it. "Parts of them, maybe. The open country, the stars at night, but not the dust or the constant moving from place to place." He met her gaze directly. "I'm finding I like having somewhere to come back to at the end of the day." Something shifted in Olivia's expression, a softening, a hopefulness that made Noah's heart beat faster. "Riverside would be lucky to keep you," she said. Before Noah could respond, the front door opened and Alina appeared. "Olivia, Robert has brought some business associates home for tea. Would you join us?" Her tone made it clear this was not really a request. Olivia sighed slightly. "Of course," she said, setting aside her embroidery. "Will you stay, Noah?" "Better not," he replied, reading Alina's expression accurately. "But I'll come by tomorrow if that's all right." "Please do," Olivia said warmly. As Noah walked back to the livery, his mind was made up. He would accept Wilson's offer. Not just because it was a good opportunity, but because it would allow him to stay near Olivia. Over these past weeks, his feelings for her had deepened beyond anything he'd experienced before. He knew she was still legally married, that her situation was complicated, that the timing was all wrong. But he also knew that some opportunities came only once in a lifetime. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he would tell her how he felt, but fate had other plans. Noah was working with a particularly stubborn mare the next morning when a boy from the inn came running into the livery yard. "Mr. Calloway," the child gasped. "Mrs. Hale says come quick, it's Mrs. Kendrick, the baby's coming." Noah's heart lurched. "Now, it's early still." "Doc Miller's already there," the boy reported, "but she's asking for you." Abandoning his work, Noah sprinted the 6 blocks to the Pearson house, arriving breathless and disheveled. Robert met him at the door, looking pale and uncomfortable. "She's upstairs," he said. "Alina and the doctor are with her. It started last night, but she didn't want anyone sent for until this morning." "Why not?" Noah demanded, already heading for the stairs. "She said it would be faster this time," Robert explained, following him. "That there was no need to disturb anyone's sleep." Alina disagreed, of course, but you know how stubborn Olivia can be. Indeed, Noah did, and the thought brought a strained smile to his face despite his worry. At the top of the stairs, Alina emerged from one of the bedrooms, her normally immaculate appearance somewhat disarrayed. "Mr. Calloway," she acknowledged. "I suppose I shouldn't be surprised to see you." "How is she?" Noah asked, ignoring her tone. Alina's expression softened slightly. "Progressing. The doctor says everything appears normal if a bit early. She's been asking for you." She hesitated, then added reluctantly, "It seems to calm her when she gets agitated." "May I see her?" Alina looked as if she might refuse, then nodded, briefly. "The doctor is examining her now." Noah entered the room to find Olivia lying in a large bed, her hair damp with perspiration, her face flushed with exertion. Dr. Miller stood at the foot of the bed, making notes in a small book. "Noah," Olivia said, relief evident in her voice. "You came." "Of course I did," he replied, moving to her side and taking her hand. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm being torn in half," she admitted with a weak attempt at humor. "But the doctor says everything is going well." "Indeed it is," Miller confirmed, approaching the bed. "Though I'll need to ask you to step out now, Mr. Calloway. Mrs. Kendrick needs to rest between contractions, and we need to prepare for the delivery." Noah nodded, giving Olivia's hand a final squeeze. "I'll be right outside," he promised. The next few hours were among the longest of Noah's life. He paced the upstairs hallway, occasionally sitting on a hard wooden chair only to rise again at the sound of Olivia's pained cries from behind the closed door. Robert brought him coffee at one point and they sat in awkward silence, 2 men helpless in the face of nature's most fundamental process. "She's stronger than she looks," Robert offered after a particularly long cry from the bedroom. "Yes," Noah agreed. "She is." As afternoon faded into evening, the cries grew more frequent and intense. Noah found himself praying for the first time in years, formless, desperate pleas for Olivia's safety and that of her child. Finally, just as the last light was fading from the sky, a new sound pierced the air, the thin, indignant wail of a newborn. Noah stood frozen, his heart pounding until the bedroom door opened and Dr. Miller appeared, his sleeves rolled up, a satisfied expression on his tired face. "Congratulations are in order," he announced. "Mother and son are doing well." "A boy," Noah repeated, a strange emotion swelling in his chest. "A fine, healthy boy," the doctor confirmed. "A bit small, being early, but strong lungs on him, as you can hear. Mrs. Kendrick is asking for you." Elena appeared behind the doctor, looking equal parts exhausted and exhilarated. 5 minutes, she told Noah firmly. "She needs rest." Noah entered the bedroom, where the air was warm and heavy with the scent of soap and something indefinable, new life, perhaps. Olivia was propped against pillows, her face radiant despite the obvious exhaustion. In her arms, wrapped in a white blanket, was a tiny red-faced infant. "Noah," she whispered, looking up with a smile that took his breath away. "Come meet my son." He approached the bed carefully, almost reverently, and looked down at the small bundle. The baby had a shock of dark hair and tiny, perfect features, his eyes squeezed shut against the newness of the world. "He's beautiful," Noah said, his voice thick with emotion. "Would you like to hold him?" Olivia offered. Startled, Noah hesitated. "I don't know how like this," Olivia demonstrated, then carefully transferred the infant to Noah's arms. The weight of the child, so light yet so significant, nearly overwhelmed him. The baby squirmed slightly, then settled, one tiny fist escaping the blanket to wave in the air. Noah caught it gently with his finger, marveling at the perfect miniature nails, the delicate skin. "What will you name him?" he asked, unable to take his eyes off the child. "Matthew," Olivia said softly. "It means gift from God because he is, despite everything." Noah nodded, understanding completely. "Matthew," he repeated, testing the name. "It suits him." Elena appeared at the doorway. "Time for mother and baby to rest," she announced. Reluctantly, Noah handed Matthew back to Olivia. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and Noah found himself wishing he could capture this moment forever. Olivia's tired but joyful face, the weight of her son in his arms, the feeling of completeness that had settled over him. "I'll come back tomorrow," he promised. "Please do," Olivia replied, her eyes already drooping with exhaustion. Outside the Pearson house, Noah stood for a long moment, looking up at the star-filled sky. Something fundamental had shifted inside him today. He had held a new life in his hands, a life that had nothing to do with him by blood or obligation, yet one that had instantly claimed a piece of his heart. And Olivia, the way she had looked, holding her son, had made him certain of one thing. He was completely, irrevocably in love with her. Whatever came next, however complicated their situation, that truth remained unshakable. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. Olivia recovered quickly from the birth, and Matthew proved to be a generally content baby, though he had his fussy moments, particularly in the middle of the night. Elena, despite her initial aloofness, became a devoted aunt, spending hours cuddling her nephew and making plans for his future education. Noah visited daily, often bringing small gifts for Matthew, a hand-carved wooden rattle from an old Mexican craftsman who frequented the livery, a soft blanket from the general store, a tiny pair of boots that wouldn't fit for years but made Olivia laugh with delight. One evening in late June, Noah arrived to find Olivia alone on the porch, Matthew sleeping in a basket beside her. The Pearsons, she explained, had gone to a dinner at the home of a business associate. "It's nice to have a moment of quiet," she admitted. "Elena is wonderful, but she does have decided opinions about everything from how often Matthew should nurse to what color his blankets should be. Noah chuckled, taking the seat beside her. The evening was warm, with fireflies beginning to dance in the garden and the scent of jasmine heavy in the air. "You look well," he observed. "Motherhood suits you." Olivia smiled, glancing at the sleeping baby. "It's strange how natural it feels, despite having no idea what I'm doing half the time." Her expression grew more serious. "Noah, there's something I need to discuss with you." The tone of her voice made his heart skip. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "Eleanor and Robert will be returning to Boston in 2 weeks. Their business here is concluded for now." "I see," Noah said carefully. "And will you be going with them?" "They've invited me to," Olivia admitted. "Robert says he could find me suitable work in his office once Matthew is a bit older. And Eleanor has already begun making arrangements for my introduction to Boston society." She gave a small laugh. "She seems determined to find me a more suitable husband than her brother." Noah felt as if the ground had shifted beneath him. The thought of Olivia leaving Riverside leaving him created a hollow feeling in his chest, but he forced himself to consider what was best for her and Matthew. "Boston would offer many advantages," he said neutrally. "Education for Matthew, security for both of you." "Yes," Olivia agreed, watching him closely. "That's what Eleanor keeps saying." But it's not home," she said simply. "Riverside is beginning to feel like home to me. I have friends here, the Hales, Dr. Miller, some of the women from church who have been so kind since Matthew's birth." She paused, meeting his gaze directly. "And then there's you." Noah's breath caught. "Olivia, let me finish," she said quickly. "These past months you've been my friend when I most needed one. You've supported me without trying to control me, helped me without making me feel like a charity case. You've been—" She hesitated, then continued more softly. "You've been everything Thomas wasn't, and I find myself wondering what might be possible between us if circumstances were different." Hope surged through Noah, powerful enough to make him dizzy. "What circumstances would those be?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Well, I'm still married, for one thing," Olivia pointed out. "Even if Thomas abandoned me, the law doesn't recognize that as grounds for divorce in most states." "California has more progressive laws," Noah said, having investigated this very matter recently. "Abandonment is grounds here, especially since there's been no support or contact." Olivia looked surprised. "You've researched this?" Noah nodded, feeling suddenly exposed. "I've been thinking about your situation, about possible solutions." "And what solution have you been considering?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. This was at the moment Noah had been both anticipating and dreading. He took her hand in his, marveling at how right it felt there. "I love you, Olivia," he said simply. "I think I have since that first night on the porch when you faced your heartbreak with such dignity. I love your strength, your kindness, your stubborn independence. And I've grown to love Matthew too, though he's only been here a few weeks." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. "Noah, I know the timing is all wrong," he continued quickly. "I know there are obstacles, legal and practical, but I've accepted Wilson's partnership offer. I'm staying in Riverside. And if you'll stay too, if you'll give me the chance to court you properly once your divorce is settled, I promise I'll spend every day trying to be the man you and Matthew deserve." Olivia was openly crying now, but smiling through her tears. "You already are that man," she said, squeezing his hand. "And I love you too. I think I have for weeks, but I was afraid to admit it, afraid of being hurt again." Noah brought her hand to his lips, kissing it gently. "I will never willingly hurt you," he vowed, "or leave you, that's a promise." From the basket beside them, Matthew stirred, making small snuffling noises that suggested he would soon demand attention. Olivia laughed softly, wiping away her tears with her free hand. "It seems my son has impeccable timing," she observed, "always interrupting at crucial moments." "He's welcome to interrupt anything, anytime," Noah said, meaning it completely. He released Olivia's hand so she could lift the awakening baby. "So what happens now?" Olivia cradled Matthew, who had opened his eyes and was regarding the world with the serious expression of a newborn. "Now I tell Elena and Robert that while I appreciate their offer, my home is here in Riverside, with Matthew." She met Noah's gaze, her eyes warm with promise. "And with you, if you'll be patient while I sort out the legal matters." "I've waited 8 years to find a place and person worth staying for," Noah said. "I can wait a while longer for things to be proper." "Though perhaps not too long," Olivia suggested with a small smile. "Matthew will need a father who's present in his life, not just a monthly letter from Boston." Noah reached out to stroke the baby's cheek with one finger. "I'd be honored to be that for him, and everything else to you." As the fireflies continued their dance in the gathering dusk, and Matthew drifted back to sleep in his mother's arms, Noah felt a sense of rightness settle over him. The long, wandering trail of his life had finally led him home. A year later, on a perfect June day, Noah stood beneath an arch of flowers in the garden of what was now their home, a modest but comfortable house near the livery, which had prospered under his and Wilson's partnership. Beside him stood Robert Pearson, who had returned to California specifically for this occasion. Across the garden, the assembled guests rose as Olivia appeared, radiant in a simple white dress, carrying a bouquet of orange blossoms. Beside her walked Elena, who had surprised everyone by championing Olivia's divorce proceedings, and then insisting on organizing this wedding with a thoroughness that brooked no argument. And toddling between the two women, occasionally needing a steadying hand, was Matthew, now just over a year old and determined to be part of every important moment. A small pillow with 2 rings was clutched in his chubby hands, though Noah suspected those rings would need to be retrieved from Elena's pocket when the time came. As Olivia reached him, her eyes shining with happiness, Noah found himself reflecting on the strange twists of fate that had brought them together. A husband's abandonment, a roadside inn, a cowboy who had stayed when every instinct told him to move on. All leading to this moment, this promise, this future they would build together. "Ready?" Olivia whispered as she took her place beside him. Noah squeezed her hand. "I've been ready since the day I met you," he replied. And as the minister began the ceremony that would make them husband and wife, as Matthew settled contentedly in Elena's lap with the pillow, now missing the rings, as predicted, Noah silently thanked whatever fortune had led him to the Crossroads Inn on that April evening a year ago. The long, lonely trail had ended. He was finally home. 5 years later, Noah stood on the porch of their expanded home, watching as Olivia supervised Matthew and his 3-year-old brother Daniel in feeding the chickens. The boys were as different as could be, Matthew thoughtful and methodical, Daniel impulsive and laughing, but equally beloved. The livery had grown into the finest horse training facility in Southern California, with clients coming from as far as San Francisco to have Noah work with their difficult animals. Olivia had opened a small bookkeeping service that served many of Riverside's growing businesses, allowing her to work from home while caring for their sons. Elena and Robert visited yearly, staying in the guest room that Noah had added specially for them. Elena still made grand plans for Matthew's education, now including Daniel in her schemes, while Robert quietly slipped the boys treats and taught them card tricks when he thought no one was looking. Of Thomas, there had been no word since his disappearance. The divorce had been granted without contest, and Noah had legally adopted Matthew 2 years ago, making the boy officially a Calloway. As Noah watched his family, the family he'd never expected to have, he felt a familiar wave of gratitude wash over him. For a man who had spent so many years wandering, the joy of standing still, of watching his children grow and his wife bloom, was a daily miracle. "Penny for your thoughts," Olivia said, coming to stand beside him as the boys raced off to check on a nest of kittens in the barn. "Just counting my blessings," Noah replied, wrapping an arm around her waist. Olivia leaned into him, fitting perfectly against his side as she always had. "Any regrets? About settling down, I mean?" Noah considered the question, then shook his head. "Not a single one. Though I did promise Daniel we'd sleep under the stars next weekend. The wanderlust may skip a generation." Olivia laughed. "Well, as long as you both come home afterwards." "Always," Noah promised, bending to kiss her. "Always home to you." And as their boys' laughter echoed across the yard, and the California sun began its descent toward the horizon, Noah Calloway, once a restless drifter, now a husband, father, and respected businessman, knew with absolute certainty that he had found the only treasure worth seeking. A love that had transformed a roadside inn into the beginning of a journey more rewarding than any trail he'd ever ridden.